Welcome back to Snippet Code. In this video, we will create login or register API with JWT Token integration, and we will consume this API in our front-end application. So first of all, we will require some of the packages which we will use in our Node.js API. So the first package is Express, and the Express is a routing and middleware web framework that has a minimum functionality of its own and is essentially a stack of middleware function calls. These middleware functions have access to the request response objects and the next params, which call the next middleware module in the stack. So the next package we are going to use is the Mongoose, and the Mongoose is an object document modeling ODM layer that sits on the top of the Node MongoDB driver. If you are coming from the SQL, it is similar to an object relational mapping ORM from a relational database. So the next package is JSON Web Tokens. So JWTs will sign an authentication request to the application, and we will create some custom middleware to handle the user authentication that listen to request and the responses. So the next package is Express Unless. It is used to conditionally skip a middleware. When a condition is met, we can use the Express Unless package. This is particularly helpful when used in the conjunction with the custom authentication middleware. So the next package is Bcrypt.js, and so the passwords are never stored in the plain text. For that purpose, we use the npm package that will encrypt our password and is one of the most used package to work with the password in the JavaScript. So the next package we are going to use is the Mongoose Unique Validator. So Mongoose Unique Validator is a plugin which adds pre-saved validation from the unique field within a Mongoose schema. This makes error handling much easier since you will get the Mongoose validation error when you attempt to violate a unique constraint. So now let's move to the Node.js API creation, and there we will install these packages. Then we will start writing our APIs. So this is the folder we have opened in our Visual Studio, that is Node.js_JWT, and here we will initialize our Node.js project, and from here we will write npm init. So it will ask for the package name. So here we will put any package name, version, then your description, entry point, test command, git repository, keywords, author, license. Is this okay? We will put here yes. So now the project has been created with a package.json file. So now we will add some packages which we have explained. First one is a npm install express space, second package name Mongoose, then we have the Express Unless, then we have the Bcrypt, then we have the JSON Web Token, then we have the Mongoose Unique Validator, and we will save them. So you can see here all the packages has been added: Bcrypt, Express, Express Unless, then we have the JSON Web Token, then we have the Mongoose, then we have the Mongoose Unique Validator. So now we will do the very important thing. Now we will create the project structure here, so you can also understand how that project work in the proper structured way. So here first of all we will create new folder, that is config. Here we will add all the configs file. So first config we are going to add here db.config.js, and the content of the file we will add later on. So the next folder will be controllers. Inside that we will create new file, that is user.controller.js. So this will be used for all the business layer and all. Then we have our middleware. Inside that we will create two middlewares. First one is a auth.js, and that will be used with our JWT and all. Second one will be errors, and this will be used as a middleware for the error handling.js. Then we will create one more folder, that is models. Inside that we will create the model file, that is user.model.js. Then we will create one more folder, that is routes. This will be used for our routing and all, and here we will create users.routes.js. Then we will create one more folder, services, and this will be used for our handling of the database with the MongoDB and all with our business logic. Here we have users.services.js. Then we will create the index.js file that will be served as our main file for the Node.js. So now let's start writing the code in the index.js file. Before that we have to write the code in our config file, that is db.config.js file, and here we will put module.exports is equal to curly brackets db, and here we will put our MongoDB //localhost /e-commerce app. So this will be used in our index.js file. So in our index.js file we will require express, and here we will get one constant express is equal to require express. Then we have a constant mongoose is equal to required mongoose, and this will import our mongoose and express in our index.js file. Then we will have constant dbconfig is equal to required, and here we have config slash dbconfig. Then we will create constant auth is equal to require, and these file we will create later on. We will just import here middleware slash auth. Then we will have constant errors is equal to require middleware slash errors. Then here we will have constant unless is equal to required, and from here we will import the package for our express-unless. So now we will create the object for our constant app is equal to express. So here we will do our connection string for our MongoDB in the index.js file, and here we will write mongoose.promise is equal to global.promise. So basically, if we want to use the mongoose in a different position inside the code, it must be seen as a global mode. That's why we need to set mongoose as a mongoose.promise is equal to global. Then here we will have mongoose.connect. Here we will pass dbconfig.db. Then here we will have two variables. First one is use new URL parser true. Then we will have unified topology true. So we are using the use new URL parser because the underlying MongoDB driver has deprecated their current connection strings parser. Because this is a major change, they added the use new URL parser flag to allow user to fall back to the old parser if they find a bug in the new parser. So you should set the use new URL parser true unless that prevent you from connecting. And the second one we are using here, use unified text topology. The MongoDB driver send the heartbeat every heartbeat frequency ms to check on the status of the connection. Heartbeat is subject to server selection timeout ms, so the MongoDB driver will retry failed heartbeats for up to 30 seconds by default. And here we have, then here we will put console.log database connected. In the case of error, we will put here console.log database can't be connected, and here we will show the reason error. So here we will write a code for middleware for authenticating the token submitted with the request. So we can also conditionally skip a middleware when a condition is met. So basically we will put here auth.authenticate token dot unless is equal to unless. So this one we are going to write in this file in the auth.js later on. So with the help of that unless, it will just check for the condition if the user having the token or not. On the basis of that, it will redirect the user to the unauthorized page or not. Then here we will put app.use, and here we will put the condition auth authentication token dot unless, and we will put some of the pages so that token will be not matched for these pages, because these pages does not require any token because these are the login or register page. So that's why we are just putting the condition of the unless. Here we will have path URL slash users slash login, and we are telling the method that will be post method. Then we will copy this and we will paste here, and here we will change it to register. So what basically it will do, so here what we are doing, whenever any request come to the API, it will check if it is having a token or not. On the basis of that, if it is not having the token, it will redirect user to the unauthorized page, or in case the authentication token is not valid, then also it will show the message of the unauthorized. So here we are putting the condition for in the unless, because here we don't want to check for the authentication token, JWT token. For that reason we require to put these pages, because in these pages we don't want your application to check for the JWT token, because these are the login or the register page. From here the token will be generated. So in the register, if the user is coming as a first time, it will create the data for that user. With the help of the login API, it will create the token for that user, and that token they can use in the other APIs. Then here we will have app.use express.json. So basically express.json is a method inbuilt in the express to recognize the incoming request object as a JSON object. So this method is called as a middleware in our application using the code. Then we will initialize our routes here. We will have app.use. Here we will put /users, and here we will call the file that is required ./routes/users routes. Then here we will have app.use for our error middlewares. Here we have errors.error handler, and this method we will create in our this file errors.js file later on. So now we will start calling the app.listen for starting the server, process.environment.port or 4000 function, and here we write console.log ready to go. So our index.js file is ready. This is as a server file, so that is ready. That is the base of the application. So what we are doing here, we have imported all our packages which is required. First we have express, mongos, then we have our unless, and then here we have added the db config, and because in the db.config we have added our mongosdb's path that we are using here in our mongos.connect. Then we have our mongos.promise so that we can use the mongos in our application anywhere. Then we are doing the connection part, and here we are checking if it is connecting. We are just showing the data was connected. In the error we are just showing the errors here. Then we have the authentication token.unless, and on the basis of the request it will check if it is having the token or not. If it is not having the token, it will show the unauthorized message. So here we are just using our unless feature so that we can bypass these pages, so that it will not check for any token for these pages, because we don't want to require any token verification in these pages. Then we have our app.us, and here we are calling the express.json so that on the basis of the request incoming request, it will check and it will pass the request as a JSON, and it will return the response as a in the JSON. Then we have the app.use for the routing purpose. Then we have the app.use for the middleware for the error handler. Then we are just starting our server. So now let's move further to create our middleware for our authentication and all. So now we will write the code for our auth.js file, and to handle the creation and authorization of the JSON web token JWTs, we will create some custom middleware helper method, and we can use these to check for the authorization token sent over by the client in the request header and create and sign the token to send over to the client side. So now we will go to our auth.js file, and here we will create the constant JWT is equal to, and here we will import our package JSON web token. Then we will create one function here, authenticate token. Here we will pass request, response or next. Here we will create one variable constant auth header is equal to request.headers, and from here we will get the variable for authorization. Then we will create constant token is equal to auth header and auth header dot split index 1. So it will fetch the token from the request, and here we will check if token is equal to null. We will return here, and we will send here status response dot send status 401. Then here we will call JWT dot verify, and this is the function inbuilt in our JWT package, and here we will pass here token. Then here we have to pass the secret key, and that secret key as a salt, you can say, can be any secret key, and here we are just putting the secret key dummy as a snippet underscore secret key. You can put any proper valid secret key also, so that which you can remember, and that you can use here. We are just using as a sample or dummy secret key here. You can use any of the key which you want to use. Then here we have error user. So here we will check if error, then we will return here response dot send status 403, and 403 means forbidden. Else we will pass here request dot user is equal to user, and from here we will call next. So what we are doing here in the authentication token, we are just passing three variables, request, response and next, and here we are getting the authorization header, and then we are extracting the token from here. We are checking here if the token is equal to null, then we are just passing here response as a send status 401, and then we are calling here jwt.verify, and from here we are just passing our token, then we are passing our secret key, then we are having the callbacks here error or user. Here we are checking if the error, then we are returning here status code as a 403, then we have a request.user is equal to user. Then we will create one more function generate access token, and this function we will call from our login API, so that after successfully login, user will get the token also in the response. Here we will pass username. Here we will return jwt.sign, and the data we are returning in that token, we are returning here username in the token we have the username. We can also pass other data also if we want in the token. Then here we have the secret key and we will use the same key. Then here we will put the expiry date for the token expire in, we are putting here 1 hour. So what we are doing here, we are just calling here jwt.signin, and here we are passing the data as a username in the token. So whatever the token will be generated, that will contain the data as a username. Then we are just passing here secret key. Then we are putting the expiry time of the token, that is 1 hour. We can also increase to 7 days, 30 days, anything we can do. And then we are just calling here modules.exports, and we will export these both the methods so that we can use it. First one is the authenticate token, then we have the generate access token. So now let's move further for the another middleware, that is error.js. So it is a good practice to have our middleware for our errors also, so that we can listen for the error response and manages what is returned to the client side. So the error handling middleware module positioning in the call stack is important, since it will need to be called after the route middleware we applied. So here we will create the function error handler. Here we have error request response next. Here we will check if type of error is equal to string, as we are just checking the object types, that's why we are putting here 3 equal to. Then here we will return response.status 400.json. Here we will return message. So whatever the error we are getting, that we will return from here. Then here we will do the same thing. We will copy this, we will paste here, and here instead of checking for the string, we will check here validation error. That will mostly came from our MongoDB schema and all. Here we will return error.message. Then we will copy this, we will paste here, and here we will put unauthorized error. Here we will put status code as a 401. Then we will copy this and we will paste here as a custom, and this will be the default to 500 server error. So we are just putting the message as a error.message. You can also put anything else if you want. If you want to append any other message with the error message, you can do here. Also you can put another variable in the response in the JSON. You can also do that also. You can also pass the status code also if you want. Here we will export module.exports is equal to, here we have error handler. So now let's move further to create the controller part and all. So now we will create our controller file. Here we will go to our control folder. Here we have users.controller.js file, and once the control file is ready, we will later on link it with our express router by creating the separate route files that is inside our routes folder. Here we will import constant by crypt.js is equal to require by crypt. It will be bc crypt.js. Then we have constant user services that we will create later on, require services / user service. Here we will create export.register. It will be exports.register is equal to request response or next. Here we will create the constant password is equal to request.body. So if we put curly bracket with the variable name, so it will automatically fetch that variable value from this object, because in the request.body we already have request.body.username.password. So if in case if I put here username, then it will automatically fetch that value and assign to the variable. So instead of creating the multiple variable, we can do in this way also. So here only we require the password. Then here we will create the salt here. Constant salt is equal to by crypt.generate salt. Here we will put 10. Round number will be 10. Then in the request.body.password, we will encrypt the password with the help of this salt by calling here by crypt.js.hashsync. Here we will pass the password, then we will pass the salt here. So when the user registers, the first thing we do is to utilize the bycrypt.js to encrypt the password. It is wise to do this as soon as possible. It allows us to create the salt create the unique password even in the instance of two users choosing the same password and then hash the password. So here we are just creating the salt. With the help of that salt, we are just hashing our password password with the password user sent by the user, and then mixing it with the salt, and we are encrypting the password here. Then here we will call user services, and we will call the method register that we will create later on in the user service. Here we have request.body. Then we will have two callbacks. First one is the error. Then we have the result here. Here we will check if error. Then we will return here next with the error message. So it will go to our next middleware, that in our case will be error handler file which we have created here. In the by default we will return here response.status 200, that means user registered successfully, and from here we will send message success, and we will pass the data. So data will be the data which is generated from our MongoDBs. So next method we will create here. Exports.login is equal to request response and next. Here we will get the variables username, password is equal to request.body. Then here we will call user service.login, and here we will pass username and password. Then here we have the callbacks, error, result, and here also we will just copy this code and we will paste here. And here we will check if error, then we will go to our next error. Then here by default we will call here return response.status is 200, that means successfully logged in. Then here we have the message success, then we have the data here, and that will be coming from our API, that user service. And here we have the last method, that will be export.userProfile. Here we have request response next, and from here we will return response.status 401 status 200.json, and here we will pass the message authorize user. So once the token is validated from this API, so it will give the message user authorize user. In the case the token is not provided or the token is invalid, so this API will return us unauthorized, because we have put that register and login API in our index.js file in the unless condition, because in this condition we don't want to check for the token, but for the user profile we are not added. So in that case the user token will be validated over there. So now let's move further to create our routes file. So here we will go to our routes folder. Then we have the user.routes.js file. And from here we will get the constant user controller. It is equal to require /controller/user controller. Then we will get the constant express, and we will import here required express that we will use for our routing purpose. And here we have constant router is equal to express.router. Then here we have router.post request. First one is a register, and here we have user controller dot register. Same way we will copy this, paste here, and the second one we will have here login, and here we will change it to login. Then we have the get request that will be used for our user -profile, and here we have user profile. Then here we will call module.exports is equal to router. So what we are doing here, we are imported our user controller file, then we have imported the express package, then we have called here, then we have created the variable for the router by calling express.router function. Then we are just calling here router.post request. There we have register, and we are assigning it with our user controller.register. Then we have the login. We are assigning with the user controller.login. Then we have the get request for the user profile. We are assigning it with the user controller.user profile. Then we are just exporting all this router. So now let's move further and we will create the model file for our schema file with our MongoDB and a NodeJS. So now we will create our model file, and that model file will be linked with our MongoDB and Node.js. So here we will go to our model folder. There we have user.model.js file, and here we will write constant mongoose is equal to require mongoose. Then we have the constant schema is equal to mongoose. Then we have the constant unique validator is equal to required mongoose unique validator. Then we will create our schema here. Constant user schema is equal to new of schema, and first variable we will have username, type will be string, and this will be required field. Then we will have email ID. Here we have type string required true. Then we will make it as a unique here, true. Same way we can do for the username also, make it as a unique, but in this case we are making unique as a email ID only. Password type string, then we have the required true. Here we have the last variable, that is date. Type will be date and our default value will be date.now. So now we will create one method that is toJSON, and that will be returned in our API whenever we do our register or login API. From there we will use this function. Basically Mongo schema have a few configurable options which can be passed to the constructor or to the set method. We can use this to create the toJSON, the method that turn our MongoDB document into a JSON, and that can be sent to our client side. And here we have user schema dot set toJSON, and here we will do some transforms, and here we have the document return object. So here we are just creating a setting an ID property and removing the underscore ID and underscore v, that value which is coming by default from the MongoDB, and the password hash which we don't need to send back to the client, that we are removing from the response. Here we have return object dot ID is equal to return object dot underscore ID to string. So instead of returning underscore ID, we are returning ID only, and then we are deleting here delete return object dot underscore ID. Then here we are delete return object dot underscore v. Then we are deleting here the password, delete return object dot password. Then we have to set the validator for our email ID to make sure the email ID is not duplicate. For that we will use here user schema dot plugin unique validator, comma, then we will pass the message here email already in use. Then we will create our Mongo's model and export it. This model will have the access to all the Mongo's helpful query method to retrieve our data from the MongoDB. Here we have constant user is equal to Mongo's dot model user, and here we will pass the schema user schema. Then from here we have module dot exports is equal to user. So now let's move further to have implementation of the user.service.js file, and for that we will go to our service folder. Then we have the users.service.js file. And this user.service we are going to use in our controller file, and here in this file we are going to consume our user model to create a method for the register or login. And here we have to create some constant user, and this will come from our required // models / user model. Then we have the constant bcrypt is equal to required bcrypt.js. Then we have the constant auth that will come from our required / middleware / auth.js, and this we will use for passing our token in the login API. And here we will create our first method, that will be, we are using a async here because we are going to do the Mongo's function here, so that we can do the await and async function login username password. Then we have the callbacks here. Here we have constant user is equal to await user dot find one, and we will find our user by username. Here we will check if user is not equal to null, that means we found a user. And here we will check for bcrypt dot compare sync. So here we will compare the password which we have created by the salt function and all, and then we will pass here the user password which is stored in our application. And here we have the password, and here we will pick from the model password. If it is match, then we will get the token. Token is equal to auth dot generate access token, and here we will pass the username. Then from here we will return callback null because the first value will be the error, so we are passing the null first parameter. Then we will pass here user dot toJSON and token. We are returning here user details and the token details from here. In the else condition, if password is not matched, we will return here callback. Here we have the message invalid username or password. Same, we will copy this and we will put here in the else condition in case the user is not found. So what we are doing here, we have created one function for the login by passing the username and password here. Then we have the callback as a parameter, and here we are just calling the Mongoose with the user.find1 by passing the username. Here we are checking if the user is not of null, then we are comparing the password which is entered by the user and comparing it with the database password. If it is found, then we will get the token from the auth API with the auth middleware, and then we are returning here callback for the user.json and a token. In the else condition, we are just calling here callback of message invalid username and password, and same in the else condition if the user is not found. So now let's move further to create a last method, that is async function register. Here we have the params callback. Here we check if params dot username is equal to undefined, that means username is not passed in the body of the API, then we will return here callback error message for message username required. Else we will just create the constant user is equal to new of user, and we will pass here params. Then we are calling here user dot save, then we have the response, and we will return here callback. First variable will be null, then we have the response, because the first variable will be used for the errors, the second one will be used for the response that we have used here in the user.controller, and here you can see we are having the error and the result. In the cache we have error, we will return here callback error. Then in the last we will do here module.exports is equal to, and here we will pass both the functions. First one is a login, second one will be the register. So now our API is ready. So now let's start the application to see if we are getting any error or anything else. If we are not getting any error, then we will test the API by using our Thunder client and all. Let's start the application here by putting the command nodemon index.js. So we are getting here the error. So this one we have to modify. So we are getting error in the auth.js file. And here we have to remove the D because it is required only. Now we are again getting the error in the users.service also, and here also we will remove D. So now the server is working fine. Here you can see we are getting ready to go database connected, then we are getting here starting node index.js, then here we are ready to go database connected. That means our connection with the MongoDB is also working fine. So in the index.js we are on the port number 4000. So now we will open our Thunder client. So here first of all we will put here localhost colon 4000/users. So our endpoint is users. So if we go to the index.js file, here you can see the API endpoint is users. So now we will call our get request API. We will go to our user.route, and here we have the three APIs. First one is register, then we have the login, then we have the user profile. So register and the login API is not required any authorization token and all, but the user profile is required. So now we will open this API, we will copy this one and we will paste here. So without passing any authorization token, we will just click on the send request. So we are getting here 401 unauthorized because we have not passed the token here in the headers. So that's why we are getting the error here. So now we will first register the user, then we will call our login API. From there we will get a token, then we will test this API. Now we will open post request. So here we will change it to register. So here without passing anything, if I click on the send request, you can see here we are getting the validation message in illegal argument undefined object because we have not passed anything here. So here if I pass only password and if I click on send, we are getting the same error. So now we will put here username Raman, then we have the password here 123456, then we will pass here email ID. So we will not pass email ID, and let's see by clicking on the send request we are getting the validation message and all. So now we will put here email and we will put here raman@gmail.com, and if I click on the send we are still getting the error illegal argument string object. So now let's see what the issue is. So here seem to be the issue, we have called the wrong method. We have to call here gen salt sync. Now let's recheck again, is it working or not. So now if I click on the send, we are getting the error here, user validation failed, email already in use, because I have already set same email ID in the same database. So I will change it to 1 and I will click on the send here. And Raman1 is also in the database. I will change it to 11 and we will click on the send. So now you can see here we are getting the message success, and username we are getting here Raman, then we are getting the email ID, then we are getting the date, then we are getting the _v, but we have removed that by mistake. We have to go to the user.model, and from here we have to check this will be _, and you can see here in the response we are only getting the ID, not _ID, and also we are not getting the password here. So again, if I click on the change the email ID to 15 and if I click on that send request, you can see here _v is removed and we are getting a username, email ID, date and ID. So now let's test it with our login API, and here we have login, and here if I remove the email ID and if I remove the username also, and if I click on the send request, you can see here we are getting here email, username or password, because I have not provided the username. And if I change it to username and I will put here Raman, and if I click on the send request, you can see here we are getting the invalid username password, because we have already the username with the multiple Raman name, because we have not put any validation for the username, but we should put that validation also in the username also, so that user can't put a multiple username, or instead of putting a username we can check it with the email ID also. But here in our case we will change it to 1 2 3 4 5 6 and we will click again the send request. So here we are getting the issue, we are getting here expire in is not allowed in the options. So let's see what the issue is. So we will go to our auth.js file. So here we have to change it to expires and we will save here. So now if I again click on the send request, you can see here we are getting the success message, we are getting the username, we are getting an email ID, date, ID, and then we are getting the token here. So now we have to copy this token, and here we will go to our user profile page and we will click again on the send request. We will get here unauthorized. So now we will go to our headers, and from here we will put the authorization, and here we will put basic, and here we will put the token here. So now if I click on a send request, you can see here we are getting here status 200 okay, and we are getting the message as a authorized user because we have passed the authorization token, and that will go to this middleware and it will check for this authorization token, and if the token found, it will verify the token and it will move to the next middleware. It will verify the token, and if it is found, if there will be any error, it will send the error message. If there is no error, it will proceed further to the next middleware and we will get the response from the API. So now in case if I change the token by putting the incorrect invalid token here, and if I click on the send request, you can see here we are getting forbidden because the token is not verified, and that's why we are getting the error message. So now if I remove this too, and if I click on the send, we are getting here proper message which is coming from our user.controller. You can see here we are getting here authorized user message. So that's all in this video. I hope you like the video. I will come back soon with the part 2 of this video. That will be the front end, and there we will create the application for that Flutter application that will consume this API with the register and login screen by using the provider statement and all. So I hope you like the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like, comment, share. I will come back soon with another awesome videos. Thank you for watching the video.